So I want to bring Jessica back. I'd like you two to talk about some of the projects you're working on, and what do you see that maybe you can't accomplish this year, but in the future that you see that Pennsylvania members of the LGBTQ community need. So I'll let you guys talk it out there.
Well, so Amber, there are the LGBT Equality Caucus right now in the legislature. It keeps an eye on and has either introduced or is many of us are prime or co-sponsors of over 25 pieces of legislation. And one of the things that Jess has done a really serious job of doing just in these first few months already is reminding all of us how many pieces of legislation that go through the legislature that have an impact on LGBTQ people that may not say the words LGBTQ in the bill. Raising the minimum wage is an LGBTQ issue. Parity between mental and physical health issues and insurance is an LGBTQ issue. And Jess makes a point regularly during our meetings of talking about sort of LGBTQ adjacent legislation.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've really appreciated about Brian is his willingness to think about the ways in which all of our success, all of our liberation is bound up together. That we can't have LGBTQ civil rights without also thinking about rights for Black and Brown people. That we can't have justice for disabled people without thinking about justice for LGBTQ people, and so on and so forth. And so that's been, I think, really exciting, those conversations that we've had. Earlier I mentioned some of the specific bills that we're working on together. It has been really rewarding to do those things. And I would also say that there's definitely legislation currently in our state legislature that we're really concerned about, that we're keeping an eye on as LGBTQ people, whether that's bills specifically targeting our community or bills that could have a potential impact on all of Pennsylvania, and certainly an even more negative one on us. I think, for example, about the judicial gerrymandering bill, which could create a court system, a statewide court system in Pennsylvania with a conservative gerrymander. It could have a substantial impact not only on LGBTQ rights, but also on the rights of all marginalized people. So I would say those are some things that we're definitely thinking about.
So here in Vermont, we have, as I mentioned earlier, we have 11 state representatives and 2 state senators. We were the first state to issue civil unions. We were one of the first states to issue marriage equality, and our list of rights for our community is a long one and has been around for quite a while. What are the obstacles in Pennsylvania that you don't have those opportunities?
Jess just mentioned, frankly, that not one of the major obstacle. And I'm going to use Virginia as an example. Amber, Pennsylvania is the last great gerrymandered state in the United States, meaning that because of algorithms and computers and voting power, every 10 years, Republicans in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have been able to draw legislative maps that secure their power more and more and more, even though there are about 800,000 registered more Democrats in the Commonwealth than Republicans. And unfortunately, what that has meant is that oftentimes the most conservative place in Pennsylvania is the Capitol when we're in session. And in really weird ways that the political science still doesn't exactly understand, states that gerrymander tend to pursue the policies, the most aggressive policies of their party. And so for those of us in Pennsylvania, what we see is a tax on trans girls participating in sports, a tax on the trans community receiving health care, 21-week abortion bans. The great gerrymander of Pennsylvania is the obstacle. Now, in Virginia, where they had a similar gerrymander that eventually fell because there was just enough Democrats that were elected, and they were able to remove those mechanisms, what happened was a wave of what would have been progressive legislation 10 years ago, but now is just catching up, respecting and protecting all the people within the Commonwealth of Virginia, in their case, making sure that everybody had equal access to insurance, to education, to health care, that they were able to participate and frankly, in almost a Republican way, kind of pay into the system. And that's the kind of thing that's keeping Pennsylvania back. Now, almost like Virginia, there's a chance that we're going to overcome that gerrymander just by the sheer numbers of Democrats that vote in Pennsylvania. There is not a person there's not a member of the Republican leadership in Pennsylvania in either chamber that wouldn't be in the minority party if they were legislators at all under a fair, just constitutional system.
Wow. Ohio, you might want to consider Ohio as one of those gerrymandered states.
Yeah, Wisconsin, North Carolina. I mean, we've really seen the damage of what gerrymandering could do. In Barack Obama's 7th State of the Union, he brought up the impact of state gerrymandering and just how much effect it has on what we all think of as our sort of day-to-day rights. And as Jess has pointed out a number of times, in a Commonwealth where she and I don't even have among the most basic civil rights, it's not she and I that are suffering the most. It's people that have significantly less resources than we do. It's people who are first and second generation immigrants who are members of the LGBTQ communities, who are people of color, and certainly trans people that are bearing the brunt of this inequality.
Jessica, what would you like to add?
I mean, I think that Brian really hit the nail on the head that gerrymandering is the biggest obstacle. But certainly I would also say, too, that the very conservative tilt of the Republican Party here in Pennsylvania isn't even reflective of Pennsylvanian Republicans as a whole. Because we know that Republican, Independent, or Democrat, people in Pennsylvania support LGBTQ rights overwhelmingly. And so, gerrymandering aside, we also see these hyper-conservative Republicans who are not reflective of even Republicans as a whole. And I think that contributes as well. But certainly the harmful impacts of the policies that they are pushing impact me and impact Brian, as he noted, much less than they impact more marginalized members of our community. And I think that's why he and I, we get to the state house and we don't say, hey, there's 3 of us, it's good enough. We turn around and we look behind us and we say, who else should be here who isn't here yet? And then we work along with folks like Sean from Victory Fund to have a more representative and reflective democracy in Pennsylvania. And I apologize for the screaming cat in the background. I swear he's fine. He's been he just wants attention.
Don't we all? All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming in tonight. Thank you so much. It's really been educational to us. We want to make sure that Jessica's address is right up there. I want to put Brian's up there as well for those who'd like to help Brian in his pursuit of the lieutenant governorship. Both of you are invited to come back anytime you'd like to. And Brian, I'll see you in P-Town.
Yes, you will, Amber. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for continuing to push these issues. I was pleased that you spoke to Sean Malloy earlier on about the Victory Fund. As Jess pointed out, anybody that's out there right now that's thinking you can do a better job than your elected officials, you might be right. And if you're LGBTQ, there are a lot of organizations and there's a lot of organizational help for you. So start with the Victory Institute and the Victory Fund.
All right. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Amber.
Bye.